I was ready, yeah. Okay. May I? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meeting of July the 12th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And first, I'd like to read the land acknowledgement. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. The land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Attawandarak, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation Métis and Inuit people from across Turtle Lake that live and work in the Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in the promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Thank you. Before I approve the agenda, I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. One, the working group are going to get together after this meeting to discuss some of the things they have been talking about doing for the 100th anniversary. So we'll try and move the meeting along pretty quick. And with his approval, I talked to our deputy clerk, Peter, and suggested that I congratulate him and his wife on their newborn baby. I believe it was a baby boy, was it? Girl. So yeah, I had a 50-50 chance for God. He's told me already once, but it went in one ear. Now, congratulations, though, Peter. It's their first. So thank you. You're welcome. And on the agenda, before I approve it, I'd like to make one amendment. We're going to move item number 7, which is the memorandum request for comments on 292 Main Street West. Just move it up to in between 5 and 6. So if I could get a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda with that amendment, and that'll be Brian Riley, thank you, and Pamela Evans. And I'll read the resolution. Resolved, the July 12th, 2022 Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee agenda be approved with the following amendment: that item number 7A, request for comment, 292 Main Street West, be considered prior to item 6, verbal updates. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest? Seeing none, could we get a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the previous Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee meeting of April the 12th? Okay. Sarah Nixon and Pamela Evans. All in favor of receiving those minutes? Thank you. Any questions on it? No? None? Thank you. And now we'll go to item 7A, and I will turn the time over to Bianca. Would like to give us a bit of a brief update on the situation, and then we might have some comments from our applicant who is in the waiting room on Zoom, and that would be Jared Marcus. So first from Bianca. Go ahead, Bianca.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So planning staff have received a application for a severance for the property known as 292 Main Street West. The proposal includes the severance of 1 residential lot into 3 residential lots and retaining the existing heritage structures. I will note that the site is on the Municipal Heritage Register. So the proposal had a severance in the front yard and then a severance in the rear yard. So I have some comments about the severance in the front yard. Thank you, Peter. I was just going to ask. Next slide. Okay, thank you. So in 2000, the Heritage Resorts was visible from Roberts Road, Livingston Avenue, and Main Street West, as seen on the PowerPoint here. Now Main Street West is the only remaining view to the resource. So if the proposed severance was to occur and a dwelling was constructed in the front yard, then the historic dwelling would no longer be visible from the public realm. And so While this area has seen significant development over the last 22 years, the current Main Street West setback from the heritage dwelling serves as an excellent example of contextual preservation. The deep lot creates a clear delineation between the modern development and the historic farm parcel. This preserved setback is a character-defining element of the subject site. I'll now briefly speak to the rear yard severance. So the rear of the subject site contains the auxiliary buildings. These buildings visually illustrate the historic use of the property and provide additional context, which contributes to the character of the subject site. While this severance of the lot would not visually impact the relationship between the main historic dwelling and the auxiliary buildings, there is concern that the character-defining elements may become vulnerable to redevelopment if the rear yard severance takes place. In order to alleviate some of these concerns, it is recommended by Heritage staff that the site be designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act and that the auxiliary buildings be included as character-defining elements. In summary, Heritage Planning staff would not be supportive of the front yard severance due to the impact on the contextual value of the subject site. And furthermore, Heritage Planning staff would only be supportive of the rear yard severance if the property was designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. This application will be going before the Land Division Committee in the near future, and the comments noted above by staff, along with any additional comments from the committee, will be provided during that upcoming meeting. So I'll pass it back to you, Chair Dunstall.
Thank you, Bianca, for that. Before we hear from our applicant, maybe is there any questions from committee? Not seeing none, then I believe Jared Marcus is in the waiting room. Peter, if you want. Jared, if you'd like to take a few minutes and speak on behalf of the applicant about what you have to present. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the time to speak to this application. If I have permission to share some slides that I've prepared. All right, I hope you all can see the screen. Something other than a black page, hopefully. Try that again. All right, hopefully it's in front of you now. All right, I don't hear any audio from the committee, but hopefully that
looks good, Jared. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, thanks. I wasn't getting anything. I was afraid my internet had gone down again. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the ability to address you tonight. My name is Jared Marcus. I'm here from IBI Group, and I'm representing the owners of the property, Lisa and Rudy Irish. And with us tonight is virtually, of course, is Ms. Leah Wallace. Ms. Wallace doesn't have a presentation for you, but she will be available to answer any questions if the committee has some. So jumping right into our presentation, I've got my first image up here is just provides a little bit of neighborhood context for the property in its current state. As you can see here in the middle left of the screen, dashed red line is the subject property. It's approximately 26 meters wide by about 165 meters deep on the short side here. And it's about 4,200 square meters, so 0.4 of a hectare. As you heard from Ms. Breccia, there are a couple structures on site, a main dwelling here in the middle of the property, and then an accessory structure in the rear half of the property. And the rest of the property is mainly comprised of large mature vegetation here at the front of the property, and it's largely devoid of any vegetation at the rear. As you can see, any old farm context has largely been removed by all the development that's occurred in the 20th century. Here on the west, north, and northeast, you can see large modern subdivisions that have completely enclosed subject lands. To the immediate east here at 290 and 288 Main Street West, you can see two newer dwellings, 290 and 288, I believe were constructed in around 2010 and 2013, respectively. And you'll see they are large, modern dwellings, though if you're looking at them from the street, they do appear to have a heritage context to them. But the front of those properties are mainly comprised of asphalt parking areas with some enhanced landscaping. And of course, to the east of the property, you have what more commonly is existing along the Main Street corridor. And on the south side, of course, you have this more historic context abutting the escarpment. Also on this image, you'll see that I've outlined a couple properties in yellow and orange. The orange properties are identifying designated heritage properties. 262 is Nixon Hall. 280, I believe this is 268 Main Street West. That's the Avonlea building. And then 271, you have the Stone Shop building, all heritage designated structures. 288, you can see is quite close to the street, and 262 Main Street is about 66 feet setback from the street. The other two properties identified in yellow are also properties on the inventory, same as the subject lands. 266 Main Street West here on the west side of Linden Lane. And then, as I noted earlier, 290 Main Street, which was built around the year 2010, which is for some reason on the heritage inventory as well, even though it's a very modern new structure. So this is what you see from 10,000 feet, give or take, a lot of suburban development surrounding the property, and then what looks like a large open front yard at the property, which really isn't what it may seem when you get down to street level context. So the next few slides just show the street context as largely what's been maintained for the last 13 or 14 years or longer. You have a large open manicured lawn at the front street edge of the property, wrought iron fence with pillars, which gives it a bit of a heritage feel, though they're fairly modern. And then you'll see large mature vegetation, which comprises most of the front of the property and largely obstructs any views into the property. You can see a couple white spruce trees here on either side of the driveway, and then what's not clearly visible from street view is a large red maple and a large birch tree behind that. So as you move through the years, that context largely hasn't changed. It's still views obstructed. You can see these spruce trees as the years go on getting larger and obstructing ever more of those views. Similarly, the large vegetation behind that obstructing views. And so that's the context of the property as it sits today. The next slide shows you the preliminary concept of what we're proposing through the severance and minor variance applications. On the left-hand side of the screen here, you'll see a smaller image of the entire property, and you'll see thicker lines through the middle of the property, dashed dot lines, and that shows you the severance that's being proposed. So you have a new lot at the front of the property, which is a rectangle of about 18 meters by about 47 meters. Then you have the existing main dwelling on the property with a new lot being created around that with a 4-meter frontage on the street. We call that flag lot. And then at the rear of the lot, again, you have a flag lot, which is the full width of the property, about 26 meters, and plus or minus, I believe it was 50 or 60 meters deep. And that's the existing shed at the rear. The current proposal doesn't envision any change to either of those buildings, particularly the exterior of those buildings. But a new structure would be proposed on what we're calling Lot 1 at the front. The key piece to our proposal was that this, while there's no development or building plans available at this time, we've structured the proposal such that all three properties would access the existing driveway that you see from Main Street West, and the new house would have its driveway and garage situated at the rear of the house so that there would be minimal disruption to that streetscape edge. The next, the image on the right-hand side of that screen shows in a little greater detail what we're proposing on the new Lot 1, which faces the street. What you can see here is all the mature vegetation on the property. So the star symbol here, those are the white spruce trees that exist on the right and left-hand side of the driveway. You can see a line running across the front of the screen. That's front of the property. That's the wrought iron fence and the pillars. And you can see here the driveway, and that's being proposed to stay in its current iteration with a driveway being proposed at the rear of that proposed house. And the only vegetation that we're proposing to be removed is the red maple that is just behind the large spruce tree, as well as a couple of the apple trees, which would could be relocated elsewhere on site. So largely any views from the street you see today would be maintained through the finality of the project, with the exception of the house here visible on just the west edge of the property. The next couple slides give you some more context of what's visible from the street. You can see here, this is I believe this is 294 Main Street West on the west side of the property. You can see the large spruce tree in the middle of the property, and you can see the large modern dwelling at 290 Main Street West, just to the right-hand side. So what you're looking at, where the previous slides I showed you what is a head-on view of the property from Main Street is obstructed by those two large coniferous trees. You can see here that views into the property, and this is an image from March. So this would be when all the leaves are off the trees. You can see that any views, there are minor views into the property from the west side. You can see the arrow here in the general direction. So there's very minimal views to the property as it sits today. You'd need to be up on the street with a phone and zooming in on the property to actually see it. So there'd be minor impacts to views from the street. And what you see here is an image looking from the east. You can see 290 Main Street on the right-hand side. You can see the large coniferous trees on the subject properties and the driveway. And you can see there's minor views into the property. Again, this is an image from March. You can see minor views into the property from the east side. So largely the existing structures are completely screened from view from the street. And so any new development at the front of the street, while it is going to create some disruption to minor views, it is being set back or proposed to be set back approximately 66 feet from the street, which is similar to other heritage properties. And it's kind of a middle ground between the property to the east and the property to the west. But I guess our submission to you today is that we don't agree that there are views from the street. It's largely a completely shielded property. There's no taking away that there will be some impact to this property, but the heritage structures will be maintained as they are today. So there's no, in our opinion, there's no threat to those existing structures, and there's only minimal change to the streetscape as you would see it today. So those are our comments to the committee today. We hope that they can see our point of view and have favorable comments moving forward. And as I noted at the outset of my comments, both Ms. Wallace and myself are available should there be comments or questions from this committee.
Thank you, Jared. Is there any questions or comments from committee members about this presentation? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, we got there. I just want to clarify, Bianca, with this application, is it to sever and keep the main, like the middle property as a designated property, or is this saying that all three will be severed from the designation? Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
through you, the chair. So our recommendation was that if the rear yard was severed, that we would want that rear yard included in the designation, because we didn't want those auxiliary buildings to be vulnerable to redevelopment. So we wanted the designation to extend to include that rear yard severance. Staff wasn't supportive of the front yard severance. So in our situation, we didn't recommend that third parcel be designated because we think there's contextual impacts from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Just a question for me. Is the applicant interested in designating the house? Jared? Are they okay with the designation? Just a question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, or to you, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we haven't really discussed what their.
Fair? Okay, I'm
Sorry?
just curious if it had been.
Okay,
discussed.
we haven't discussed in detail.
Okay.
I'm sure if the applications are unsuccessful, they would prefer that the property not be designated. My understanding from the consultant's report is that the property meets those criteria. So whether it's designated or not, I believe any development on the lands would be subject to this committee's further review. So,
It's on, is it on the registry, Bianca? Yeah, it's on the registry, so it is somewhat protected. And let me say that about the registry, because there's always a misconception there that it just gives us 60 days to look at it if somebody came in with a demolition permit. In other words, without it being on the registry, you could come in tomorrow with a demolition permit and we'd have no way to stop it. So for the audience, it's just another opportunity to tell everybody that it just requires the individual to wait 60 days while we assess the situation and see if there's any historical value in the property that's being demolitioned. So yeah, that's good. It's protected in that sense. I was thinking of another question, but it's left me. So thank you very much, though, for your presentation. Our comments are going to be put forward to the Committee of Adjustment. You're going to the Committee of Adjustment, I understand, to see if you can get the minor variance to sever these properties. Is that correct? Have I got that? Yeah. Oh, we got two hands up. You have to understand, Jared, this is our first live meeting, so we're all trying to get used to the old ways. Yeah, I will let Pamela go first. Go ahead, Pamela, you have a question through me?
Thank you. I was trying to see where would the frontage, for the proposed new home, what is the proposed frontage in accordance with the homes beside it?
Through the chair, the existing property is about 26 meters wide. We are proposing that the proposed home, that lot would be approximately 18 meters wide. That would be consistent with the existing zoning on the subject lands. The other two lots would have those small frontages from the street at 4 meters apiece. I don't know what the other houses along the street, what the width of those are off the top of my head, unfortunately.
So it would be further back than 290?
Sorry, through the chair, I heard frontage and I was thinking lot width. You're asking
The
where
setback, sorry, setback.
Sorry, currently we are proposing that the house would be set back 22 meters from the street, so approximately 66 feet. The other houses, if you were to look at 290 and move easterly, they are on a weird angle to the street, and so 290 would be approximately 28 meters, and then that varies in depth all the way down to the other designated structure, the Avonlea, which is almost directly on the street or on the front lot line. So we're about midpoint between 294, I believe it is, and 290. So we're about 22 meters back, or 66 feet
Okay, thank you.
proposed.
Sarah, you had a, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Through you, the chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciated how you were looking at the how the severance and how we can see the house from the street, and how right now we can't really see the home. But from my understanding from the memorandum, I think it's what's important isn't what's visible, but what is not visible. I think it's the setback is what is contextually, historically significant. And so that would be what makes, like so that would be why it's important to designate both the frontage and the home as well. Even though we can't see the home, it's what we don't see is what matters. Is that, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Yeah, good. Did you have a comment on that, Jared, or maybe Lee? Lee, you did the
Yeah, I would.
heritage impact assessment. Would you agree? Yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
defer, yeah. I would defer to the heritage consultant on an answer to that question.
I'm sorry, I lost connection with you, so I didn't hear all the last of the conversation.
We can hear you but not see you, so
That's all right, I don't have my video on.
oh, but if Sarah would
Oh,
like,
okay.
want to
Can you see
repeat
me
what you
now?
said? Yeah.
see me now?
Yeah. Sarah,
I
did
had to
you?
come in on my telephone, I apologize.
No.
I apologize.
Sarah, did you want to go ahead and repeat yourself there?
Yes, thank you. Through you, the chair. I just wanted a question of clarification, I guess. Just looking at what Jared presented regarding, he gave us a nice look of how we can see the historic home, or how we can't see it from the historic home from the streetscape, and how that's kind of gives, I don't know, reason that maybe severance wouldn't impact the heritage value of the property. But from what I was understanding, from what I've been reading, it's what you can't see that actually is what matters here. The fact that there is the setback, that there is the trees, and that's what is historically significant, is that this once was a farmland that would have been set quite back. So I'm just looking for some clarification. If we did choose to designate this property, that the frontage is what matters as well, and preserving that. I just wanted some clarification. Thank you.
Yes, well, obviously, there is an impact, because the proposal is to put a house in the front. And I am aware that these farm properties were set, well, at least the farm buildings or the homes were set back. Most not quite as far as this one, which was quite far. So there is a need to preserve certainly the appearance of that setback on the street, whether it's about the whole setback or whether it's about preserving the look of that on the street, is the question. And one you're probably going to have to grapple with, as did I. So, from my perspective, when discussing impacts and mitigation, the issue was how to make that work visually while allowing for the house to be there. But I do understand what you're saying, it's not exactly what you can't see, but it's the setback of the building, which you cannot see most of the time. It's very difficult to see. So while that may not clarify things for you, I think I do understand. My issue was how to conserve as much of that appearance or non-appearance as possible. So that was where I was coming from, based on the fact that there was a proposal for a severance. I needed to deal with how that could be mitigated as much as possible, because it is an impact. Also, there is also a way of, and I hope I'm not stepping on Jared's toes, there's probably a way of protecting that appearance by designating not just where the house is sitting, the present house is sitting, and the rear, and designating the buildings at the rear. Before the severance happens, if you could designate all three, the property before it's severed, then you would have a certain amount of control over how the design of the house, the new house, would be. And that is what I was implying in my mitigation, that until the house was designed, it would be on a designated property and therefore subject to a heritage permit. Does everybody understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, but can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure. So what you're suggesting is designate all the property. It's just one property, and it hasn't been severed.
It is one
And
property,
when
right?
when we usually designate, we designate the house, we don't necessarily designate the property, do
No,
we?
well, see, so this is a misnomer.
Okay, we
It's
do
the
the
property
property.
that's designated.
Okay,
Otherwise, we wouldn't be discussing the setbacks.
exactly, right.
So
Okay.
the property, the property, and I don't, as a former municipal heritage planner, I don't know how many times I've said this. It isn't just the structures on the property.
It's a
the property itself.
Yeah,
So
okay,
if you designated the whole property, then the severance went through, it's still designated until you technically reword the designation bylaw. And it's a technical thing to remove the property at the front. But it would allow you to control what happens on that property when somebody comes in with a building permit application. Because it's still part of the designation.
right. So designate, then the severance has to be approved by the Committee of Adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And then they could still put a bill, okay, well,
Yeah.
I think Bianca would like to say a few comments and words too. Go ahead, Bianca.
Thank you, through you, the chair. I just wanted to address Sarah's comments because I think they were more directed at the memo prepared by staff. So my understanding is the photographs, they showed how you could visually see the house from the streetscape. But as Sarah's saying, we feel the contextual value is very significant. The entrance to the historic farm was around that area. That is the house from the farm, so the setback is important. And as I noted, we did have accessibility from 3 other larger roads in 2000, and over the last 22 years, we now only have this last few left. And then further to that, in order to ensure that the public realm can read the area properly and how the area developed, by putting that house in front of the historic house, we're really going to blur the lines on how the streetscape evolved. And I think in order to ensure that, you know, the public perceives the area as it did evolve, I think that setback needs to be maintained. And further to the comments about designation, we do believe that the site should be designated, and that if the severance did occur at the back, that the legal description for the designation still included that parcel. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
So if I could clarify that, what you're saying is you'd prefer not to see the severance at the front if there's going to be a severance just at the back? And this is after the property is designated? Can we get ahead well, I guess the question is, which will come first? It's like the chicken or the egg. Is the designation going to happen before the severance, or is the severance going to go ahead before we have a chance to designate? That's the question. Go ahead, Bianca.
Through you, the chair. So yes, so staff would not be supportive of the front yard severance.
Okay, gotcha.
And we would only be supportive of the rear yard severance if the applicant agreed to designate the property, and that the rear yard be included, whether that designation take place before the severance or after. We would want that parcel included in the designation bylaw.
All right. Pamela, go ahead. You have another question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Leah, I have a question for you. You made a comment in your report about the home being moved 262, I believe, for some townhomes. Does staff?
The property that was designated as 262?
Yes. Do we
Well-
know where that was moved from?
I think it was across, maybe Bianca could help me. I thought it was across the road or something like that, but it was moved. And it confused me because the mapping still showed it in its original position.
Right.
The mapping, Niagara Navigator. So I was having trouble trying to figure it out. And then it was fixed up and designated.
Oh, okay. I know which house.
Yeah, there are two houses that are really similar. They're kind of four square houses on that side of the street. One of them is on the register and the other one is designated.
The one thing I struggle with on this, this home has a significant setback. And, you know, the homes beside it, the 290 definitely has still heritage qualities and everything. And I'm familiar from when the first aerial shot was. I've been in this community for that long. And this home now has 15 properties around it. And I do commend the fact that it is still intact and in great shape. And I appreciate what Jared was saying about the lines back to, you know, the visual part. I'm not really sure if that would open it up or not. I do think it's a challenge, though, and I certainly struggle with this one. So thank you, Leah.
You're welcome.
Can you turn, oh, you got it, good. Yeah, Brian, you'd like to ask a question? Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. Jared, how long has the applicant owned this property for?
Through the chair, I believe they've been in there about 12 or 15 years, but it would take me a few moments to find where I stored that information.
And then just, maybe, Jared, if you can clarify with me, I was trying to understand, so in the one section where it talks about the intended uses of it, there's obviously the intended use for the front lot to build a new structure on there. For the rear lot, I just wanted to clarify, it says, where did I have it here? The rear lot, all the structures will be conserved. What is the intended use for the rear lot to build a new structure on top of that third rear lot?
Through the chair, the intended use would be for that. The existing shed is quite large, and the intended use would be to repurpose that as a dwelling space. There's no current plans to build on that. We understand that that structure is part of that heritage value of the property. So I think that would go back to what Ms. Wallace was saying about the designations. But currently, there's no plan to construct another new dwelling or expand that existing dwelling. Just reuse it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I have a couple of resolutions here. Let me just read them so the committee knows if they want to support it or not. Resolved that the committee endorses the staff recommendation within the request for comment memorandum, and that the comments be submitted to the Committee of Adjustments, and that the following comments from the committee also be shared with the Committee of Adjustments. So I would add those comments, or if you're happy with what staff has said, and then resolve that the committee endorse the staff comments within the request for comment memorandum, and that the comments be submitted to the Committee of Adjustment. So the two recommendations, one's to expand on, and the other one is, let's just leave it the way it is, and that's the way we see it. So that is, the purpose is there a mover and a seconder to do that? That's the next question. Do you want to move it? Oh, do you want me to repeat it? Yes, absolutely. It's important. So resolve that the committee endorses the staff comments within the request for comment memorandum, and that the comments be submitted to the Committee of Adjustments. So we're just giving advice, and we're giving it to the Committee of Adjustment and through the staff recommendation. So that's the purpose of this resolution. Are we supportive of this, or we just don't, we're stuck? We're in the mud.
Can you clarify what the second one is then?
Well, it's the same thing, but we add more comments
Oh, I see.
to the Committee of Adjustment. That's all, it's an expanded resolution that we can add to it. There's this one, and this one's status quo, this one, we elaborate more with other comments. Do we need a couple minutes to think about it? They're happy to support, oh, I got two. Do I have a first and a seconder? Okay. And that's Pamela Evans and Sarah Nixon. And then I say all in favor? Yeah, it's carried. Okay. Thank you very much, Jared and Leah, for your comments and direction. We appreciate it. Have a great evening. And welcome Mayor Jordan. Is that Mayor Jordan on the screen there? Yes, it is. Sorry, I've got my glasses on. Hello, Mayor Jordan. Nice to have you here.
Yes, hello.
Okay. Moving on to the agenda, we look like we're going to have some verbal updates. We're on verbal update, Heritage Conservation District, Main Street East, and Bianca, could you give us an update on that? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So I wanted to provide an update to the committee. So at this point, staff have received the draft recommendation report from Stantec, our consultants. We've provided our technical review of the document, and so that's now been sent back to Stantec. They have it. They are looking at those comments that we provided, and then following that, we'll be setting up our stakeholders committee meeting to review the draft document. And then once that's been completed, we will be holding our second public information center to present the recommendations from the consultant. Following those two community engagement sessions, the consultants will take back some of that feedback and come forward with a new document that will be brought to Heritage Committee, and then Committee of the Whole, and then Council. And we will provide comments when it comes to Heritage Committee to help aid council in their decision. And then concurrently, a staff recommendation report will also be prepared. And both those documents will be provided to you at that meeting. And I just wanted to note that depending on the information or feedback provided by the stakeholders group and the Public Information Center, the consultant may need longer to provide an updated draft. So that's the update on the HCD.
Question? Go ahead, Pamela.
So I'm on the stakeholders, and we've had one meeting. So is this typical that there's one meeting and then the consulting company does kind of an update with you or presentation, or is there usually more meetings?
Go ahead, Bianca.
Through you, the chair. So we're still in the first phase, which is the study phase. So there was two stakeholder meetings that we were going to be having. So the first one was to collect your initial feedback on the study area. The second is now to present you with the recommendations. You'll be able to provide feedback on those recommendations. And then if a district is recommended and approved by council, then we enter into the second phase, which is the district plan. And that's when we'll be having likely more frequent meetings, because we'll be making more providing more comments on things. So because the initial study is so based on an analysis by the consultants, there's not as much opportunity for the stakeholders to provide their input. That comes more during, if it is recommended to be a district and approved, then it would come during the district plan.
Okay, I have a resolution. Let me read it, and I'll look for first and seconder. Resolve that the verbal update regarding the Heritage District Main Street East study be received. Okay. Pam Evans has moved it, and Sarah Nixon has seconded. All in favor? That's carried for the verbal update. And the next verbal update is the Grimsby Beach Land Use Planning Study, and I'm going to turn the time over to Garrett. If you could give us an update on that, Garrett, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair, Councillor Dunstall. So I'll be giving a brief update on the Grimsby Beach Land Use Planning Study. So following the approval of the secondary plan and the zoning bylaw amendment by council, these documents were appealed. The appeal hearing is still being scheduled by the OLT. I also wanted to provide a short update on the large register inclusion discussed at our last Heritage Committee meeting. Council approved this large register inclusion, which resulted in 175 properties being added to the municipal heritage register, 90 of which are located within Grimsby Beach. These properties will now have protections under Part 4, Section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I will now pass it back to the chair.
Thank you, Garrett. Seeing no questions, if I could read the resolution, resolve that the verbal update regarding the Grimsby Beach Land Use Planning Study be received. I need a mover and seconder. Brian and Pamela. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. The next one is something a little more exciting. Yeah, the plaque event. Garrett, you want to give us an update on the plaque event? Like a little kid.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So this is a reminder of the Heritage Plaque Ceremony that's happening on July 21st. We're looking forward to presenting the designation plaques to our heritage property owners. If you haven't RSVP'd yet, please do by July 18th, as noted in the invitation. Thank you. I'll pass it back to the chair.
And is Mayor Jordan going to be presenting those plaques? You'll be there, Mayor Jordan?
Yes, I'll be there.
Good,
and,
good.
I'll present it.
You'll be able to give me mine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Seeing no Seeing no questions, I have a resolution to resolve that the verbal update regarding the plaque event be received, and Pamela will move it. Thank you, Pamela. And Sarah will second it. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And we have another update. It's on the Nixon Hall, and Garrett, you'd like to take that one on too. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, the chair. Thank you, Peter, for the slide. Heritage Planning staff want to congratulate the owners of Nixon Hall on the completion of their newly installed cedar shingle roof, which you can see up on the screen. The correct use of materials and quality finishes have set an amazing standard for historic preservation within Grimsby. Staff thank the owners for their continued efforts and dedication to preserving our community's history. Thank you. I'll pass it back to you, the chair.
Thank you. See no questions. I need a mover and a seconder for the resolve that the verbal update be received. Brian and Pamela. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And the next update, I'm going to turn the time back to Bianca. It's the designation appeal updates. That's plural.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So I have some good news with these designation appeals. Both notice of intention to designate objections were withdrawn by the previous property owners. We have new property owners who have not objected to this. So both of these property will be moving forward in the notice of intention to designate phase. So the designation bylaws are being prepared by staff to be brought forward to committee of the whole and council for their review and approval. Thank you.
Is that what we call a good news story? Yeah, that's a good news story, eh? Yeah, that's a good news story. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to resolve that the verbal update regarding designation appeals be received. Sarah and Pamela, all in favor? Thank you very much. That's carried. I do see out of the corner of my eye. And our next and final verbal update is the working groups. And Sarah, you'd like to give us an update on what's going on in the working group?
Thank you. So through you, the chair, I'd like to give an update on the Heritage Committee. We're really excited to be part of a Grimsby 100 working group. So we were able to meet with Sarah Sweeney, the Director of Parks and Recreation, in May to discuss the committee's project for the Grimsby 100. And so we were kind of tasked with a way to celebrate Grimsby's really a dynamic and a long storied history. And wow, what a project. So what we decided to do, we really wanted an interpretive heritage project that commemorated this history, but also had a life beyond the 100 years. And we are also really emphasizing community participation and engagement as a way to identify and explore what we're calling the layers of Grimsby's history. So we have identified 10 layers. And it is our goal to establish these layers through this committee and then hopefully over the years grow this project to be larger. For Grimsby 100, we thought as a way to get the committee or to get the community involved, we would create kind of postcards, interpretive postcards. An example is what's submitted here, where at the in the front of your postcard would be a historic image from Grimsby's. Right here, just as a draft, I have a typical streetscape of a downtown Grimsby in the early 1900s, and then having an interpretation describing what we're seeing in the image historically, and then prompting the community to share their own memories and what stands out to them about this photograph. So in my draft here, I know it's hard to see from here, but I asked, it's about transportation in Grimsby. We have the streetcar tracks, so asking whoever's reading this postcard, how did you get around Grimsby? Did you ever use a streetcar? How did you move around Grimsby growing up? And then what else stands out to, the person from this image, what the streetscape looks like, how it's changed. So this is a way to share history, but also encourage the community to engage and contribute. Our idea with these postcards is we might be able to have them at, the Grimsby Market or, any festivals or events that are happening in the summer. Maybe we have them at the Peach King Center, or station at the market, like I said, and really engaging the community and saying, hey, here's, a historic image of the town. Share your thoughts with us. And our goal with this kind of project is to gather the memories and stories that they share, add them to our 10 layers of history. So this is an ongoing history project. The 10 layers of history that we've identified are Indigenous, early settlement in the War of 1812, early industrial history, agricultural history, transportation, education and religion, arts and culture, the First and Second World War, plus the post-war era and sports. So as you can tell, those are really big layers, but they offer us an opportunity to see how they're all connected. But also, I think when I mention, all of those layers, we probably had images come to mind for each of them. So I think we're all, the community as a whole has so much to contribute to this project. So the hope with the working group is to kind of lay the foundations for something bigger. We start with Grimsby 100. Maybe we take a couple of these layers for the Grimsby 100 event in September, and then we see where the project goes. So right now, the working group, we've each taken some of these these layers, and we're working on preliminary research opportunities to explore more of that history, and then we come together to discuss what's next and how are we actually going to present this to the public. So lots of planning and excitement now, and now it's actually figuring out a way to present it to the public. Maybe it's through these postcards or something else, and seeing where it goes. And we're really looking forward to seeing how the community gets involved as well. So I think unless I've missed anything, please feel free to jump in if I've missed anything. But otherwise, yeah, that's it for right now.
Thank you, Sarah. Excellent report. I think it sounds like you want to create the snowball effect. As it goes down the hill, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. What a way to start. That's great. That's great. Seeing no questions, I have a resolution here to receive it. The resolve that the verbal update regarding working groups for Grimsby 100 be received. I need okay, Brian and Pam. All in favor? Thank you very much again, Sarah. Great job you guys are doing. Great. Now we'll move on to reports, and we have a status and activities sheet that Bianca would like to brief us on. Okay? No
Thank you.
presentation, you just want to give us an update. eh?
Thank you, through you, the chair. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions about the document. I just wanted to know, I did put in there kind of like notification that a lot of the items have been completed and that they'll be removed from the next list. So I just wanted to make sure you saw those ones. Otherwise, if you have any other questions, thank you.
Any questions for Bianca? None? So the resolution is that the status and activity sheet be received. Mover, Pam, and Sarah. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And do we have any new business? And your new business is going off to have your working group meeting. Yeah, that'll be good. Seeing none, Mayor Jordan, if you're here, so I, just in case you had anything you wanted to say, if not, that's fine too.
No, I'm just looking forward to seeing through the chair. I'm just looking forward to seeing everyone on the 21st, and looking
Yeah.
forward to finally presenting the plaques.
Great.
Very happy to be.
Yeah, oh, it's exciting. Yeah, it really is. That's good. Seeing no further business, before I adjourn the meeting, when's our next meeting? Because I don't see it on here. Is it September?
Through you, the chair,
Yes.
I believe it's supposed to be in October, and I am still
Okay, October.
confirming with the clerks what's going to happen with
Oh, yes,
the election.
So I can,
Yes.
we'll have to leave that out there, sorry, audience, but I will officially adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Everybody have a great evening. Bye-bye.